What's going on, everyone? So, a Kevin Durant trade is expected as soon as next week. The issue is it doesn't look like the San Antonio Spurs are going to be the team to land Kevin Durant. Now, obviously, things can change and they can change rather quickly. Obviously, you never know, right? You hear all the time, like a team's out and then all of a sudden that team ends up, right? Phoenix is a great example, right? Supposedly, Phoenix was not going to be able to land Kevin Durant, even though Kevin Durant's preferred destination was the Phoenix Suns. That the Nets, they were trying to get, the best trade possible or whatever. But Phoenix ended up having to pony up a lot to go get Kevin Durant, which could end up leading to that scenario for, a San Antonio Spurs team that could look at it and go, hey, do we really want to pony up what we'd have to pony up to compete with some of these other teams, right? According to Shams, a Kevin Durant trade could happen in the next few days, right? With the Heat, Timberwolves, and Rockets emerging as finalists. So the Miami Heat, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Houston Rockets seem to be the three teams most likely to land Kevin Durant. I don't really see what Miami could give up, that would make sense for Kevin Durant. Right? Or make sense for Phoenix, for Kevin Durant. And also, would Kevin Durant really want to go to Miami? It's like him, Bam, and Tyler Hero. Is that enough to compete and win? I mean, maybe you could argue because he's in the East, potentially. Minnesota is the team that I'd be like, watch out. Houston can offer a lot. Like, Houston can give a pretty substantial package. I don't know if Kevin Durant necessarily puts them over the top because still kind of like, it depends on what Jalen Green does, but Kevin Durant would still essentially be their primary scoring option. But nonetheless, it appears that those three teams seem to be the finalists, right? And look, I don't think it's the end of the world or anything like that if the Spurs don't land Kevin Durant. Obviously, it'd be great. I definitely think it would, kind of expedite the process for the Spurs a little bit here, especially with De'Aaron Fox. But I'm okay with the Spurs kind of just staying the course and waiting for that right move or that right trade, right? Very possible Giannis could still become available, and maybe that's the move that they make. If not, every few months, it feels like a new star becomes available. There could be somebody else, at the trade deadline where it's like, that's the guy you're going to go get. And if it doesn't, it's fine. You stick to the script, you go draft Dylan Harper, and you're a good, young, exciting team that hopefully can make the playoffs. Right? Like, I don't necessarily think that they're, contending for a championship or something without a Kevin Durant, but there's also questions, are they contending for a championship with Kevin Durant as soon as this year? Right? Maybe, possibly, but there's also other moves. There's also other trades. Made a video earlier today talking about what if instead of even focusing on Kevin Durant, instead of giving up what you'd have to give up to go get Kevin Durant, what if instead you just took that same package and went and got like a Trey Murphy and a Herb Jones? Because even if you were to trade for a Kevin Durant, you still have to solve your other forward position and you still have other needs that you need to go and acquire, right? But Herb Jones and Trey Murphy combined make less than Kevin Durant. So you'd have to give up even less players to go get those guys. You probably have to give up the same, if not maybe a little more assets. But again, you immediately solve both your forward spots. And now you have your starting five for the next 6 years plus, right? And a guy in Trey Murphy just proved that he can be a 25-5 guy. Right? And then Herb Jones is one of the better defensive pieces, right? Again, I'm not saying it necessarily has to be that, but there are other options. It's okay for the Spurs to just kind of stay the course, right? And just keep drafting, keep building, keep, building that chemistry. Let's see what a year with, De'Aaron Fox, full training camp, full preseason, full, regular season with this team, Stephon Castle in year 2, Victor Wembanyama in year 3. Let's see what these guys can do. Let's see what Dylan Harper can do as a rookie. Can the Spurs go 3 for 3? And have Wemby, Castle, and now Dylan Harper be rookie of the year after year. And maybe Dylan Harper's competing for a 6th man of the year because he's averaging, 18 off the bench or something. Who knows? I mean, I'm not saying that that's going to necessarily happen or that'll necessarily be the case, but who knows, right? Spurs definitely need to, because they got De'Aaron Fox, need to, sooner rather than later, try to get some more veteran pieces that can help kind of win now, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be right now. Like, again, be patient, stay the course. It also depends on how patient, De'Aaron Fox is. But also, you don't have 5 years to kind of carve this out, right? By that point, De'Aaron Fox is on the decline and, is probably nowhere near the player he is right now. So you do want to, sooner rather than later, get something done. But if it takes you a year or two, even if you went and trade for Kevin Durant, right? Which, again, could still happen just because, you hear finalists all the time and then Spurs go, maybe it's because Spurs aren't willing to pony up what they have to pony up. Maybe they change their mind, right? Maybe it's a negotiation tactic, right? You hear it all the time, right? Like, oh, they're not interested in and the next thing you know, they end up trading, right? Kevin Durant traded to the Spurs definitely raises that ceiling pretty significantly. But does it raise the ceiling enough to where they're winning a championship this season? I don't necessarily think so. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but again, there's still a lot of things that are in question. What is Wemby like in year 2 or year 3? Right? What is Castle like in year 2? How does De'Aaron Fox, does he actually impact winning? Because they traded for him and didn't give up any of their significant pieces, and they actually had a worse win percentage, right? So, again, there's still questions that would still have to present itself and be answered, even if they go trade for Kevin Durant. It's just, again, if those things happen to the level in which they could potentially happen, and then you add in Kevin Durant, then yes, I think that they could be contending and potentially win an NBA championship. But if those things don't happen, then even with Kevin Durant, yeah, you're making the playoffs. Maybe you get to the second round, but I don't think you're a contender compared to these top teams, right? But if those things happen and whatnot, right? So, and then if those things happen, you might end up being just a second round exit anyway, right? And then you kind of go through the OKC route where it's like, okay, missed the play-in and the playoffs entirely. Now you're a playoff team. And then you're, in maybe the conference finals. And then now you're winning an NBA championship. Because now Wemby's in year 5 and you've had a couple years of building chemistry. And Stephon Castle's established in year, 4. And, and Dylan Harper's in year 3. And now your guys are ready to kind of take those steps. They've gotten some experience under their belts. They're feeling a little confident. They got a little swagger, right? Like that is something that I could see happening, right? Like you don't want to force the issue, right? Talk about it. Opportunistic trades. If that opportunistic Kevin Durant trade falls in your lap, then take it, right? But don't force the issue. Don't be one of those teams that overpays or ponies up or whatever to go get Kevin Durant. And then now it's like, I just stay the course, stay patient, trust the process, believe that, by doing it correctly, you will get the correct end result, right? Kevin Durant comes to the Spurs, which supposedly is his preferred destination. Okay, if that really is the case and that really is his preferred destination, then he has a lot of power and say. A lot of power and say. So why doesn't he use that power and say and force his way to the Spurs if he really wants to go there that bad? I mean, he was able to get to the Suns and he was on multiple years on his contract, right? So, we'll see. Time will tell. But it does look, based on the reports, based on the news, but keep in mind, everything's a rumor until it actually happens. Based on the reports, based on the news, it looks like the San Antonio Spurs may be out on Kevin Durant. But as always, this is a discussion, pass question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out as we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.